The Link 2 Pro is Insta360's latest flagship webcam. And in this video, we'll unbox it, we'll test it, and we'll highlight some of my favorite features. This is not a paid endorsement, but I will have an affiliate link in the description in case you want to buy one. So the first question you probably have is, what does it look like? Well, you're looking at it right now. This is a 4K 30fps, 1080p 60fps webcam, and it's actually difficult to have an accurate representation of what it could look like because the software gives you so many things to customize. Let's do the unboxing and then we'll come back for the features that I want to show. Packaging is pretty cool. This is actually embossed. I don't know if you can see it. Bring this out. We can already see the camera in there, in the mount. I'm gonna remove the mount. So this says keep parallel with the desktop. So you gotta keep it level. User manual, the app, video tutorial links. Now we have our USB-C to USB-A adapter in the cable. And finally, the camera. I'm gonna remove this. Beautiful. I'll also remove the bottom. There it is. So the little USB port is behind. The camera is teeny tiny and kind of awkward to hold because of the gimbals. But you can see it turns like that and like that. And at the bottom, we can see this. I'm guessing they went full magnetic with the mount. So that's the mount. 1/4" thread at the bottom, so universal. If we unfold it, it's like that. And you can see this, you can tilt it, but they do ask you to keep it parallel. The connections at the bottom are for some other products that it's compatible with. You can see the mount doesn't have anything except beautiful. And there you have it. This is what's going on your monitor. Beautiful. In terms of size, if we were to compare it to the old one or the first 360 Link, you can see the difference. This is much bigger. Now for the features, autofocus, it's gonna be one of them. If you want to showcase a product or something like that, and then go back to your face, just like that. We'll go more in depth into the software, but of course, this camera has a gimbal. So if I move around, nothing happens. But if I do this gesture, I can see it activated tracking. Now I can move my head around and it can be smooth. You can actually control the speed of the tracking. We'll see that later too, but there's actually presets that you can save. I'm gonna go back to my previous preset and you can see it just goes back to it. There's a privacy setting on this webcam that is pretty fun. If you grab the camera and manually twist it down, it will enter privacy mode. So instead of having a normal webcam cover, you can just pull it down and just like that, it even shows a visual. So instead of having a physical cover, you can just manually turn it down. When it comes to gestures, it's not just the tracking. You can also zoom, I believe. So if I pull down, it will go back. And if I pull up, it will go in. And then I can stop. And there we go. This is pretty cool. There's also a touch button on the camera. If I press it, it'll reset. Very practical. All right, let me show you the software. They actually redesigned the software to make it more simple to use compared to the old one. Talking about the old one, I actually still have it right there. So if we look at top right, we're gonna have our scene presets. So this actually records everything and we're gonna go tab by tab basically. First thing is going to be the view. So you can control your camera here or incrementally by just clicking on the arrows. There's also the zoom. And basically what you can do is, amongst other things, save that preset. So this is preset 2. Now I can go back to preset 1. And it takes everything into account, the effects tab and the image tab. The effects tab is pretty cool. It basically cuts you from the background. So you can have a blur effect, as we can have here. We can play with the intensity. So this is what regular webcams, like other webcams or other software tend to do. It's a Gaussian type of blur, but Insta360 has a bokeh effect. So this is like a lens blur effect. So it freezes a little bit when you're switching. And this creates like more of a natural camera blur effect, if you will, which I definitely appreciate. Of course, you don't really want to exaggerate it too much unless, you know, you're going for privacy, but you can see that the blur is definitely different than what you would get from those regular blurs. I like to keep it around 30% or 40%, and it makes it seem, yeah, more natural in a way. But of course, if you don't want to show your background at all, they added all of the cool background replacement stuff that you can find mostly for meetings and things like that. And if you do own a green screen, there is an option to basically remove the green, which is nice. But my favorite, definitely the bokeh, slightly turned on. Other than the background, you can also add some filters. So you can have like basically color filters in a way. As you can see, it handles the color way differently. Now this webcam has HDR, so nothing is too bright, nothing is too dark for it to actually handle it and give you a lot of versatility when it comes to color management. This is why I said it's difficult to really show you what it's gonna look like for you unless you have the same lighting conditions, unless you have the same settings. Two setup will not look the same, and you can really customize the look. So I just clicked on daylight. Right now we have vintage. I'm not gonna show all of them, but it's to give you an idea that this is really highly customizable. And now we have a look that's completely different from what we had before. And again, this takes into account the scene presets. So if you save a preset, it's going to take that into account too. Let me remove the filter so we can see the next one a little bit better. This is the makeup tab, so you can add makeup to your face basically, as you can see. And then you can play with the intensity. It can be like light makeup or a lot. There's the fresh option. Let me boost it up. And then there's rose. There you go. And let's boost that too. My eyes, wow. I don't need more than my natural eyeshadow, to be fair. All right, let's turn that off. There's more. And then there's beautify. So beautify is mostly like the skin in a way, and it gives you extra options to brighten the skin slightly, to make it smooth or less smooth. And then there's clarity. Basically, that will make everything just a little punchier, if you will, like contrast, but in a different way. All right, I'll turn that off and we'll collapse the effects tab, and then we'll go to image. And here you'll see that you have a whole lot of options, including HDR. I feel like this is one of the times where putting everything automatic is kind of good. In my case, I remove white balance because my lights are all sorts of colors, so it's hard for the camera to know what is white. But as a plug and play camera, automatic settings with the HDR on, very important, will actually give you a pretty decent result. As you can see, I'm not doing anything fancy with the contrast, with the sharpness or the saturation, and I still get this type of image, which is kind of impressive. But if you don't want any of that, let's say like the exposure, let's say that this result is a little too bright for you, you can always turn off auto exposure. And then you have manual access to the ISO and the shutter speed, which is nice. On top of that, you also have the exposure curve. So if I wanted my darks to be darker and I wanted my highlights to be brighter, I can do that. You see, I can really push it, and that's directly in the software, which is kind of nice. Something else to consider is that this camera actually gives you two outputs. So in your broadcasting software or in your Zoom, your Discord, you'll have the option to use the regular camera source or the virtual camera source, which is where you're gonna have all the fancy effects like the green screen stuff, the background replacement, the bokeh. So you have that virtual camera on top of the regular plug and play camera. Anyways, we'll bring exposure back to automatic, and you know, it does a pretty good job. Brightness does its thing, contrast does its thing. So something to warn you though is that sometimes it takes a while to adjust. For example, if I turn off HDR and I turn it back on, so now it's off, and you can see that it's taking a couple of seconds. It's very smooth until it settles to the quality it actually wants you to have, in a way. If I turn HDR on, it's gonna look very bright, and then it's gonna slowly settle. Oh, I accidentally turned on tracking. By the way, in the software, bottom here is where you would have the tracking. So you don't have to do the gesture. You can just click on the software. It's faster that way. But yeah, in order to save a preset, I can click on a little plus here. It creates a new preset. Or if I want to update a preset, I can click on the three dots, or I can just hover and then click update preset. So it has autofocus, but you can have manual focus if you want. If you feel like it's maybe dancing with the focus a little bit, or you really don't want to be out of focus at all, and you're just sitting in front of your webcam like I am right now, you would turn off autofocus and then just try to settle it, take something like that. And in my case, like, it might give me the best results because I know that the focus won't be dancing. But of course, it's manual focus, so if I want to show something, it's gonna be autofocus. So keep that in mind. Maybe just turn it on when you're trying to show something. All right, now for one of my favorite features, and that is the desk mode, the desk view at the bottom here. And basically the camera is sitting on your monitor, right? If you turn on desk view, it's gonna switch down and actually compensate for the angle and make it look as if you had a top-down camera, which always blows my mind. It's like one of the biggest, coolest things that the Insta360 can do, and it's tracking again. By the way, if you want to turn off gestures, you can easily do this by clicking top right here and turning them off. So you can see here, there's a whiteboard mode. If you have a whiteboard, it'll actually scan your image and detect the whiteboard, and you can do a peace sign to make it zoom into that whiteboard. So we do have a preset number 3. I'll click on that and it should reframe me. Before we do the desk view, there is like a ton of new tracking options such as group tracking, which I cannot really demonstrate, but there's also smart composition. So if I turn that on, I can kind of choose and tell it, hey, I just want my head to show, or I want half of my body, or I want full body. So depending on what you're doing, if you're doing a presentation where you're walking around, then you would choose whole body or half body. But if you're just sitting here, you can be like, okay, just the head, right? Well, let's click on head. I don't know if I can really show you a good example, but if I turn it on, you can see that, you know, it's not just tracking me when I'm moving around, it is also framing me correctly. And zoom out, all the way out. I think it's 85 degrees, the view angle. But then what happens if I move? So you can basically override it. Let's select half body. So it's not just about, oh, you can see it turn on again. So it's not just about tracking you, it's also framing you correctly. There's also something called tracking area, which I'm not gonna demonstrate, but I want to let you know that this is possible. You can basically set up areas in your field of view that the tracking will basically stop. Let's say that you have, you know, you're showcasing a product that's on a mannequin. You can set it preemptively to basically stop somewhere. So I'll turn it on here, for example, and let's just say I want to showcase a certain height. I would set that up like that, I believe. Wow. So I can click on those to see like the current angle that it's set up as. That is so wild. Look at that. And it flips like that. Or I can just edit them and then click until it reaches that boundary, right? And then I click OK, and that sets it up. I'll do this and it sets it up. Actually, I want the top to be like that in case I want to stand up. Let's say, for example, you don't want to accidentally show your crotch or your legs or your pants. You can set it so that it doesn't go lower than that. So as it says, the camera will recognize and track a person within the selected area, only applicable in single tracking mode. So this is a concern that I actually heard people have, is the whole, I don't want to show my whole apartment. Well, you can set like a boundary. You see how it stops now? It knows. So now you can really select the field of view that it's allowed to track you in without showing things that you don't want to show. And you can see it's doing the automatic framing thing, which is cool. One more option before the desk view. There's a lot, there's so much. I cannot cover everything in one video, and not all of them apply to me. Horizontal correction right there. I fixed the position, but earlier I had my camera kind of slanted, so it wasn't on the horizon. So it wasn't leveled, and you can make it basically be leveled, which is so cool by turning this on. There's also smart adjustment here, keeps you centered automatically, detects your head, and adjusts framing for the best angle. So a lot of automatic things that just make your life easier if you're someone who's moving around, who actually needs to be moving around and all that. So let's say you're live streaming or you're recording content and you need to show what's happening with your hands or something on your desk. You would go and click on desk view. So this is the desk view, and I'm actually recording this on a separate day because I can use the sun to have proper lighting on the desk. And as you can see, the camera is still on my monitor, pointing down at an angle, all right? And it's appearing flat. Of course, the perspective is not perfect because you can see the top of here, but that's because, well, it is diagonal, right? But you can see that all of the options like autofocus and even the view and moving it around and things like that, if you want to zoom out a little bit, all of that absolutely works. So your camera is 100% functional as if it was an overhead-ish camera. In fact, even the filters are working. I'm still on daylight right now. I'm gonna put my hand, and if I turn it off, this is without the daylight filter. And the autofocus also still works. So if you want to showcase a product or something, of course, there's nothing in this box. But yeah, if you wanna showcase a product, on top of the exposure that you're gonna see adjust a little bit so we can see all the details, it just works. And you can just switch in between talking to the camera like that, and then you click on desk view, and then boom, you can show your hands and whatever you're talking about, right? So if you bought something new, you're doing an unboxing, maybe you're doing a video where you unbox stuff, and then sometimes you want to switch to your face talking about the product, kind of like what I'm doing right now. It is just that easy. To me, this is one of the best options with Insta360 webcams in general, because I don't see other webcams provide that. And it's all thanks to the gimbal, so the camera can just face down whenever it wants to. The software flattening it so it doesn't look like it's diagonal really makes it a really, really cool feature, in my opinion. Oh yeah, do keep in mind that the bokeh effect, the specific blur, is not supported at 4K. The Gaussian blur, as you can see right now, is supported at 4K, but the Bokeh specifically isn't. So overall, I think this is a good all-rounder camera. If you're looking for a very versatile camera that does all of that, the price tag is $249.99 for a 4K webcam that has this very powerful software behind it, and the gimbal, and the tracking, and the desk view, and if that's something that you use, the whiteboard feature. It also has a microphone with some pretty advanced technology, but as a live streamer and a content creator, we use those types of microphones, so I'm not even gonna go over that, but I urge you to go and, research some more if you wanna learn about those features that I did not feature. Anyways, check out the link in the description if you would like to get one. Make sure you like the video and also subscribe so you don't miss my content in the future.